Hello, vinyl community. It's Martin here. It's let me see, mid-November. That's the best way to describe it, I think. And I am fine. I'm up to show some mostly £1 finds. One was £2, I think. Charity shops, junk shops. After the last record fair, I was feeling a bit. I'd almost feel like I spent too much money actually, but out of the money that I made, I didn't spend more than 20% of what I'd made. But somebody actually offered me the whole box of records and CDs, and there was loads of stuff there at the end of the record fair, because I didn't want to go home with it. Obviously, I wish I'd taken it now. It was, there was loads of like Arlo Guthrie and some sort of bluesy things, and just stacks of CDs as well. Which, because I do a radio show, in retrospect, on the radio, it's easier to play CDs in the studio where I am, and actually now I regret it, but hey ho, never mind. Okay, onwards and upwards. I'll crack on after this ramble. I hate to mention the C word, but I found this for £1. I think it is. Well, it was originally 57. I'm guessing this is some sort of 70s, 80s repress. It's got some pictures in it of Elvis. And, oh, there we go. 50th anniversary releases. So I suppose that sort of gives it away, really. I don't know how I feel about Elvis Presley doing Christmas songs. I'll give it a go. Some sort of people you think, should they really be doing Touching Christmas? This is a Christian artist who's still around, I think. This is from 70, early 70s anyway. And I guess from the cover it might be half decent. Actually, my wife described it as a bit cheesy, but I thought it was sort of quite interesting, sort of keyboards, and not keyboards in the 70s were a lot less bother than they became in the 80s. Yeah, and the cover sold it to me as well. So that is that, and we have to say goodbye to October, and we're going to say hello to Christmas soon. Here's some animals that migrate, or some of them do anyway. So we've got 3 bird albums. We've got this is Ludwig Koch, MBE, who was obviously got an MBE for recording nature wildlife, I presume. There we go. I think these are all BBC albums. That's the first one. We've got Wildlife of East Anglia. So East Anglia is a part of Britain, if you don't know, on the east lower coast, but above London, and it's very flat, and it has a coastline that sort of goes round like a, I was going to say like a bottom, but you know what I mean anyway. Haven't listened to these ones yet. And the last one is Back Garden Birds. These sort of things are more interesting for me, especially when it comes to sampling, because they'll often have background noises of cities and cityscapes and whatnot. So that's far more. Well, no, not always. No, sometimes just nature and everything is really what we're craving for. I think really. This album had a few interesting things on it. The Hunt, it's got Wookie Hole Caves. Mrs. Olive Hodgkinson tells her story. The Welsh Steelworks, a conversation in Welsh, intermingled with songs and little pieces of whatnot. The funny thing was, after I saw this album, this same very cover, it was used by some, they obviously just pilfered it, or plagiarised it, and they've used it for an album, like some indie or rock band. I didn't really take a lot of notice who it was really, but I just thought, oh yeah, I recognise that cottage. So that was £1. Right, we're going up north now, where it's grim. It's Yorkshire Pilgrimage. This is some songs and some stories. Particular fish and chip shop that comes from Yorkshire. Someone tells a story about that. Some bits of York. Scarborough Fair, obviously. Some fisherman stories. Humberside fisherman story. And then somebody else, I think this guy was from up north. Stanley Holloway. I'm trying to think, was this the guy who did all the spoonerisms with the voices on Small Faces? Someone can tell me just at the drop of a hat, I'm sure. But yeah. Okay, so I'm trying to think, was it a couple of different times that I went out or not? I can't remember. Anyway, I went out. Oh no, hang on, still got a couple more here. Here's a couple of guys from, well, Humberside sort of area, I think, which is a bit higher up than East Anglia. There they are on the beach. Look at that, a beach with no litter on it. I'm presuming this is sort of folk, sort of malarkey. And this was the one that was £2. Now, I saw this guy in the back here and thought it was a Japanese hipster there with his glasses on. So this album, I knew it had a sample from Massive Attack on it, or something very similar that somebody's borrowed, and it was Japanese, and I just thought I would give that a go. And actually, that's quite an interesting album. Not all brilliant, but some half decent tracks on there. And it's called Deep Cut. And then now there was lots of I went somewhere and there was lots of Christian albums. They were all a bit mashed. They've all got the pastor's name on it, or people that they belong to on it as well, and even like the little stickers where they bought them from and whatnot. Sometimes written on the label. So I got this. It's a little bit on the mashed side. It's a Rev VB and the Gospel Flame. And I thought, if that picture doesn't sell a record, I don't know what would really. And it is from, actually, it's interestingly from Kingston, Jamaica. When I looked it up on Discogs, it was described as more soul funk, so we shall see. It's obviously like a Pentecostal sort of thing. Somebody called Vivian Burke. Don't know anything about him at all. Which brings me to the last lot of half a dozen or so records for today. Now, they say charity begins at home. It doesn't usually begin in the high street in England anymore. Britain's dying high streets. Yeah, sure. I'm sure all of us have found great records in charity shops at one time or another. This particular charity shop, it obviously does a lot of good work for charity, but it has recently come in for some criticism. When was it? Like maybe even a couple of years ago now, I think. It's from Oxford, just to say who they are, without naming them. And I'm sure they're just the same as a lot of things in the news, in that it's sort of a bit, yeah, there's bad things that happen, even in charities, and without rambling around the bush too much, I'm sure it's no worse than anything other, but it was in the news a couple of years ago. Now, to VC or record collectors, I'm sure this particular charity shop is not their favourite. I've certainly heard a few people saying, or even just talking to people I know, that it's always overpriced and they're always scratched. And anyway, they're not always, no. And also sometimes charity does begin in the high street, because I found some records that were totally mispriced in the classical section. They're all modern classical records, 20th century. The other records that were priced up, there were not what I would want to pay for albums. I think there was one maybe that was £1 or something, and I did think about it. It was unopened, it was newish, and I just thought, well, if it's unopened, it can't be that great. Someone stuck it in there for £1. Anyway, so I went for the modern classical albums. So we will start off with these two. So we've got Switched on Bark. Can't remember if this is a rarer version of it or not. Something to do with the cover, is it? Or label. And I don't really care, because it is about music, really. So this might well be a nice upgrade copy for me. Looks okay. I grabbed another one by Walter. This is called By Request. So it's sort of a little bit of a mixture bag. Lovely picture on the cover there. You've got three dances from a Nutcracker Suite, and then some of her own compositions. Dialogues for piano and 2 loudspeakers, episodes for piano and electric sound. So I suppose they've just started. This is 76, so this would have been after that Sonic Seasonings, which I haven't got, I think. What's New Pussycat, Eleanor Rigby, Handel's Water Music. So it's a real mishmash of stuff. I suppose also a record I suppose this looks like the sort of thing a record company put out to sort of sell some stuff rather than our own Walter Carlos's own compositions. I suppose this was like more appealing and whatnot. Right, and the next 4, they are all Open University albums. Open University in Milton Keynes, and are they on even something to do with BBC? I'm not sure. So they're all modern classical records, all worth more than what I paid for. All these were 99p. There. So we've got the Second Viennese School, not the Second Viennese Slice. And this is Alban Berg, Arnold Schoenberg, Anton Webern, and that is recorded in BBC Maida Vale Studios. Actually, these albums go very nicely with the book that I showed. It's in my bag, hang on, in my work bag. There it is. I'll show that in a minute. Or in fact now, this book, which I showed, and it's all about, well, I suppose how we look at music, and then he goes into talking about sounds in the world, or just things to dabble with, and just turning everything on its head, I suppose. But I suppose with also like a reason, even if you don't like it. And I haven't got that far into it, I must admit. But it gets you thinking, the whole concepts of stuff. This is French, and I found it on just generic web internet place where we've all bought albums from, translated from French. And just so I can put you out of your misery again, 20th Century Music 2, and you recognise that guy at Stockhausen. And this is his Contacti, which is quite out there. I listened to it. It's got a breakdown at the end on the second side of all the separate instruments for people that are studying music, and they can see where it all came from, and it's got also this Tristan Fry guy, who was in Sky, and what else was he in? I forget now. Well, all sorts of things he was in. Yeah. And then we've got from the same series, Janacek, Ives, and Vares. Open University, The Rise of Modernism in Music, 1890 to 1935. Record of this is record of 8th of 10 records produced by the Open University for students of its course A308. And lastly, a bit of Bartok. Sorry if my pronunciations on these records are wrong. Hungarian composer, today regarded with that of Schoenberg and Stravinsky. Important, significant. So I might be having a very alternative Christmas listening to all these records. Maybe I'll have a bit of tinsel on in the background just to, just frame it all. So thanks for watching. Sorry, it was a bit of a slow ramble at 17 minutes. I hope you are all doing well. Thank you to new subscribers, for people that just stick with me and watch me. But comment. I've watched quite a lot of videos lately. Let me see. Steve Whitty, Suprawares. Often I'll do a whole batch of them. Who else? James Griffiths, Rob Walker, Mr. Hall of Fame. Yeah, just a bit of a wide variety, to be honest with you. Sorry if I haven't really commented on them much, but just only sort of comment if there's something worth saying. And oh, well, John Bellamy. Yeah, John Bellamy has done a couple of great videos. I think was one a response. One was a response to the whole Grail, Holy Grail, Vinyl Grail thing. That was really good. That was almost like a sermon, John. I thought that was a really good video. And you did another one with that huge amount of CDs. Loads of 90s stuff, some of which I've still got on record. That was really interesting. When you were in those plastic bags, I was just thinking, if you didn't want the rest of them, I'd probably have them. But yeah, but time capsule, I thought that was a great idea. Okay, thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day when you watch this, and I will see you all, speak to you soon. Cheers, bye.